Hi, I'm Kat, and I guess by now you already know the drill. I have for you a true crime case. I will also be doing my makeup at the same time, and I also have a word in Romanian for today. So, let's start with the word, which is frați. 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 Well done, guys! You just said brothers. Now, this is very close to my heart as I have been following the case of Orrin and Orson West from the beginning, and I actually covered a lot of aspects of this case at the beginning of 2021. I also made my own interview analysis of Trezell and Jaqueline West's media interview, the one and only, and most of us who followed the case could tell from the beginning that something just seemed off with them. Not only their story didn't seem to make sense, but also after their only interview, I think that that's when we all knew that those were complete fabrications. Anyway, if you want to know all of the details that I covered in this case, I do have a playlist available on my other channel, so you can go and watch the playlist, and I will also leave the link for the playlist in the description under this video, and I think it will be popping up on your screen as well. I don't know, this corner or this corner. Mind you, I have to say that I'm not uploading videos on the other channel anymore, so there is no point in you following me there or subscribing, but you can check out the playlist of the boys' case coverage. Now, if you are not familiar with this case, let me just give you a quick overview before we get into the latest news of the case. 3-year-old Orson West and 4-year-old Orrin West were brothers who lived in Cal City, California, and they were reported missing on Monday, 21st of December 2020, by their adoptive parents Trezell and Jaqueline West. A search of the missing boys quickly began, but without any results. Police and the FBI got involved, and canine dogs were also brought in. Authorities searched the house, and they even dug up the backyard. The dogs actually picked up the scent of Orrin and Orson in the house, but nowhere outside in the backyard. Previously named Classic and Sincere by their biological mother, Ryan Dean, Orrin and Orson West have been fostered in 2018, and then they were adopted in 2019 by Trezell and Jaqueline West. Now, Trezell and Jaqueline West, they have 2 more adoptive children, and they also have 2 biological children. Orrin and Orson were actually the youngest of all the siblings. Before moving to Cal City, the family lived in Bakersfield in an apartment. Bakersfield is 68 miles, around 1 hour and 13 minutes away from Cal City. Apparently, their decision to move to Cal City was for the children to have a backyard and also for a bigger space. And at one point, according to Trezell, they really wanted to live off the grid and kind of like live off the land as well. According to Ryan, the boy's biological mother, Orrin and Orson were removed from her care because she was found to be using drugs. She claims, however, that she was in fact using medical marijuana, for which she did actually have a medical note. So after the kids were taken away, she was trying to get them back, even presenting the medical note to the judge handling the case, but the judge just wouldn't budge. He didn't take the note into consideration. So the kids were placed into foster care, eventually going to Trezell and Jaqueline. Again, according to Ryan, she had no idea that the kids were adopted until the second day of their disappearance, when she heard on the news that they had been adopted. So what exactly happened on December 21st, 2020? Trezell said that on that evening at around 5 p.m. the boys were playing in their backyard with chalk. He says that Jaqueline was inside wrapping presents while he went out the back gate to gather wood for a fire. When he returned, the boys simply just vanished. They searched inside the house and around the backyard as well. He then drove around the neighborhood calling their names and talking to neighbors, but the boys were nowhere to be found. As new footage from a nearby neighbor was obtained, it became clear that Trezell and Jaqueline's version of events didn't align with what was shown on the camera. What's worse, neighbors reported never having seen the boys ever since the family moved to Cal City from Bakersfield in September 2020. Even more so, there is no one, absolutely no witness who can actually verify Orrin and Orson West have ever got in the van that the family used from Bakersfield to move to Cal City with the rest of them. You know, when I initially looked into this case and became, suspicious of the couple, my question was, why did they report the children missing just before Christmas out of all of the other times, right? So, according to Trezell's interview, all children went to their grandparents for the holidays, for the Christmas holidays, but only Orrin and Orson stayed with Trezell and Jaqueline because the boys were the youngest of all of them. Now, I see it completely different, and I'm sure a lot of you see it as well. I think that the grandparents or the relatives must have asked to see the boys over the holidays, so Trezell and Jaqueline, they actually had to come up with the missing children story. And now, let's get to the latest updates in this case. After 14 months since Orrin and Orson were first reported missing from their California City home, from their adoptive parents, and with what seemed to be no progress in the investigation, on Tuesday, 1st of March 2022, Bakersfield police charged both Trezell and Jaqueline with the boys' murder. They were both charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of willful cruelty to a child, and 1 count of falsely reporting an emergency. They were each booked into the Kern County Jail. According to authorities, Trezell and Jaqueline were being held at the Central Receiving Facility on Truxtun Avenue in Bakersfield without bail. The court hearing was then booked for the 3rd of March at 8 a.m. for both of them. And no surprise there, both of them pled not guilty. The trial progressed, and we will touch in more detail a bit later. Meanwhile, quite a few biological family members of Orrin and Orson West filed lawsuits against Kern County and the state of California. The suits alleged that CPS negligently and wrongfully placed Orrin and Orson with people outside of friends and family, which ended up being Trezell and Jaqueline. As of 30th of January 2023, so just a couple of months ago, a federal judge dismissed a $40 million lawsuit filed against the Kern County Department of Human Services or Social Services and others because it lacks a factual basis to prove their allegations. Orrin and Orson's mother, Ryan Dean, and maternal grandmother, Dana Moorer, claimed that County DHS negligently allowed Trezell and Jaqueline to adopt Orrin and Orson West, which led to them dying. They also alleged in their complaint that social workers violated their civil rights when they removed the babies from their care despite meeting every requirement to regain custody. Ryan's lawyer, San Francisco-based civil rights attorney Joaquin McCoy, wrote in an email that his clients plan to file an amended complaint excluding the defendant, Kim Johnson, the director of the California Department of Human Services. United States Court of the Eastern District Judge John A. Mendez wrote in his order that Kim Johnson, the director, is shielded under sovereign immunity, which doesn't allow a state official to be sued in their official capacity. That's because the charges stem from potential violations of the office and not a singular person. Even if Kim Johnson is sued in her individual capacity, Ryan and Dana both failed to substantiate any claim against Kim and other defendants who are former Kern County DHS Director Dina Murphy, and a social worker. In her filing, Ryan said that Orrin was taken away from her in 2016 after she took him to Memorial Hospital to treat broken bones. She had come home from work and found her 3-month-old son crying uncontrollably. The baby had been in the care of his father, Charles Peters, that day. Ryan said that Charles told her that he gave his son 2 baths that day, but nothing out of the ordinary happened. However, when Ryan took her son to the hospital, doctors discovered that both of his legs were broken. He was taken into the custody of the Kern County Human Services after doctors felt that he might have been abused in the home. Ryan, whose attorney said had no criminal record, completed parenting classes and filed reunification requests to regain custody of her son, who had been placed in a foster home where she was actually able to visit him quite regularly. As a result of the stress of the situation, however, her attorney said that a doctor recommended she use marijuana. Once she completed her parenting classes, her attempts to reunify with her son were denied because she was told she needed counseling as a result of the marijuana use. So as you can see, no matter what you try and how you try it, it just works out against you, and it just kind of goes head to head, you know what I mean? As in, you are being told one thing, that you can do one thing, you're doing that thing, and then again that same thing comes back against you, which just doesn't make any sense. Her son Orson was born 1 year later in June 2017. Even though he was initially released into her care, he was removed by the Kern County Human Services Department a few days later because she said that she was told they like to keep siblings together. Both boys were then removed from their foster home without any reason, and they were placed into the West care in late 2018. Ryan said she was never given an explanation why the move was made. After that, she saw the children less often. When she was able to see them, she noticed that the children were losing weight, they appeared scared, and one of her sons had scratches on his face. So Ryan wrote a letter to the Human Services Department expressing her concerns that her children weren't getting proper care, but she never got any response. The family's attorney, Joaquin McCoy, said at the press conference that Ryan and Dana, the biological mother and grandmother, took the required classes to be reunited with the boys, but CPS instead allowed the West family to officially adopt Orrin and Orson in 2020. Dana had also made multiple attempts to gain custody of her grandchildren, also completing parenting classes and undergoing a psychological review, but her requests were denied as well. So you could say that they tried absolutely everything they could to get those boys back, but they didn't get them. The maternal grandfather, Leif Dean, also filed a separate lawsuit requesting $100 million from the same people. It also alleges that his civil rights were violated when the boys were given to Trezell and Jaqueline West. Leif Dean is represented by McCoy, Ryan Dean's attorney. Charles and Brenda Peters, the father and paternal grandmother of Orrin and Orson, also filed a wrongful death and negligence lawsuit against County DHS, saying that negligent hiring led to the severe emotional distress from the toddlers' deaths. I mean, I don't know, you guys, is it just me, or does it kind of seem like all of the biological families trying to take advantage of the situation? Okay, I can understand the biological mother and grandmother because quite obviously they tried to do everything that they possibly could to get the boys back. They really desperately tried to regain custody and they did everything right, but I mean, the father and his father or his mother, they were not even in the boys' lives. I mean, the father was only in the boys' lives just before the baby was taken by social services after he was found to have the broken legs. So all of a sudden you now have the biological father who just appeared out of nowhere when the boy's disappearance was broadcasted everywhere. Yes, I do agree that all of these institutions, they should be held responsible for what they did. And yes, I also disagree with the judge about what he said about the director having immunity. In the end, she represents a department which allowed this to happen on her watch. I don't know, I mean, what do you guys think? Why do I feel like there is more of a financial reason behind these lawsuits rather than accountability? Now, moving on to the trial of Trezell and Jaqueline West. I'm sure you've heard, but if you haven't, the trial ended and the jury reached a verdict. And I have to tell you, I was shocked when I heard this verdict. Some rules that the judge set in court during trial actually meant that the trial was not live streamed. However, you could listen to the audio feed from the court's website, but legally, no one was allowed to stream, record, or share the audio feed elsewhere. Needless to say, however, some people, they did do it illegally, and actually the judge found out, but he still decided that it was in the public's best interest to hear the audio from the court. There are clips of opening statements and arraignment that we all got to see, but everything else is only from audio on their website and news articles written by reporters who were attending court during the trial.
Wearing gray jumpsuits and in handcuffs, those in the courtroom Thursday got a look at Trezell and Jaqueline West, who sat on opposite sides of the bench.
Just knowing that they're handcuffed and they're not leaving is a blessing.
Biological cousin to the missing boys, Rosanna Wills, agrees with the decision.
No bail allowed.
To keep them behind bars.
I could finally get some sleep now, knowing that they're not out just, running. So, yeah, it's a lot of relief on our family.
Judge Chad Louis also granted a request from the prosecution for sealing of the offense reports and probable cause declaration. In addition, the prosecution also requested a gag order, which was not granted Thursday.
They can plead what they want, no contest, not guilty, but we know they're guilty.
Outside of the courthouse, community member Araceli Patino stood beside Wills and many others who followed the search over the last 14 months.
We need to stand in justice for this baby, because this baby should never gone through this. No parent should go through anything like this.
Wills says she is prepared for the trial, which is expected to begin May 23rd.
There's nothing that's going to stop me from being here, nothing.
And is appreciative of the community for standing by their side during this process.
I just want to tell the community thank you all for your support, your prayers, for keeping the boys' faces out there, for just the love, just, everything, investing the time and the finances for the billboard, just everything.
The prosecution in the trial claimed that Jaqueline and Trezell adopted the boys only to live off of the money that they would get for looking after them. Prosecutor Eric Smith claimed that they planned the death of the children with another unknown person who then killed Orrin and Orson West. Like I said, both Trezell and Jaqueline pleaded not guilty to the 2 second-degree murder charges, an involuntary manslaughter charge, willful cruelty to a child, and falsely reporting an emergency in their deaths.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Trezell West. This is Jaqueline West. And their 2 sons are missing. Their sons, Orrin and Orson, are missing. And we're here because it's easier to charge them than for them to explain why they couldn't find them.
This is the last known photo ever taken of Orrin. It's recovered from the cell phones that were seized in this case. This is the last known photo of Orson, taken in the apartment at Lotus Lane, July 25th, 2020. Now, during one of the interviews, and it'll be played for you here, Jaqueline West talks about how she talked to her kids about Orrin and Orson. She said, "I told them, pretend they're not here. Just act like they don't live here. Just go do your work." She talked about what she did with Orrin and Orson. "I always keep them separated. I keep them separated. I focus mainly on schooling while they're playing. They don't really play together, but they have played together. I just don't know." But that's essentially what happened to Orrin and Orson. They were in that home, but they were kept separate. And then ultimately, sometime in September, they were killed and have not been seen since then.
Extensive searches, including excavations, were performed at various sites in California City and Bakersfield, but sadly, no body has been found. Perhaps the biggest questions are, where are the boys and where exactly investigators believe they were killed? In California City or Bakersfield, where the Wests lived until September 2020. According to law enforcement, the boys died as a result of abuse, but the case is based on circumstantial evidence. Prosecutor Eric Smith said that one of the couple's other children said that he witnessed one of the boys die and then the other just disappeared. The prosecutor said, quote, "Orson was in California City for about 4 days. At some point, Adrian heard a loud thud in the night. The day prior to hearing the thud, Orson was there. The day after, Orson was gone and he hasn't seen him since." Defense attorney Timothy Hennessy said that the children are missing and it was easier for police to charge the parents than to actually find the boys. He also said that tips were not followed up on and the 41 sex offenders in California City weren't spoken to until 11 days after the boys were reported missing. Much of the case rested on the testimony of Trezell and Jaqueline's other boys. The prosecutor said that he got testimony from more than 50 witnesses, which led to the parents' indictment. He also said that one child said that Orrin died in Bakersfield, where the family lived, before moving away. The child said that Orrin died after turning a pale color and vomiting. The other child said that Orson died after living in California City for just 4 days. Trezell and Jaqueline originally reported Orrin and Orson missing on December 21st, 2020. Police immediately responded and they began searching the area. Aerial searches were brought in, cadaver dogs, and even the community organized search parties for the children. Still, to this day, the bodies of Orrin and Orson West have never been found. As the prosecution laid out in court, investigators quickly began to suspect foul play on the part of the parents. All of this is based on the statements of 4 children under the age of 11. Officer Brian Hanson was sent to interview the West's other children who were with Trezell's mother, Wanda. He asked each child if they understood the difference between a truth or a lie. The children were able to show that they did. He then asked if they knew if it was wrong to kill someone, and the children said yes. During the trial, the prosecution pointed to these interviews as the first pieces of evidence that something happened to Orrin and Orson. The defense, on the other hand, said that these interviews were improper, with leading questions that had no established timeline. Defense counsel argued that the children gave conflicting statements and were confused when answering questions. Recordings of these interviews showed the children at times saying that Orrin and Orson weren't in the van when they were brought to Wanda's, that they were only in Cal City for a few days, or that they didn't see them since the family moved from Casa Loma apartments in Bakersfield. The defense argued that after these interviews, Officer Brian Hanson delivered information that something happened to Orrin and Orson, causing the investigation to focus on Trezell and Jaqueline. Trezell and Jaqueline were brought in to speak with Officer Hanson, Bakersfield Police Detective John Ryan, and the FBI. Recordings of the interview with Jaqueline were played during the trial, and in the recordings Jaqueline is questioned for hours about her story not matching Trezell's story or statements from other family members. By the end of the interrogation, Jaqueline became frustrated, having said repeatedly that she told the truth, and then she tells Detective Ryan that she regrets getting the police involved. While Trezell and Jaqueline were questioned by investigators, their children were brought to the Jamison Center to be interviewed by social worker Sania Barton. During an interview on December 28, 2020, their eldest biological son said that one night he heard strange noises coming from Orrin's bed. He said in a recorded interview that the following day he saw vomit coming from Orrin's nose. He also said that his parents told him that Orrin died. The boy said that he even touched Orrin's body and he was cold. The boy also said that he didn't tell anyone because his parents, Trezell and Jaqueline, said that he and his brothers would be taken away from them. The defense argued that the story the child told the social worker was the result of days of interrogation, exposure to media coverage, and improper questioning. So, during the trial, they brought in Dr. Susan Napolitano, a child psychologist, to review the interviews and testify to leading and suggestive questions. In her review, Dr. Napolitano said that she heard moments where the social worker used techniques like social pressure to influence the child. At one point during the recording, the social worker is referring to alleged abuse and tells the child that all his brothers described it, so why doesn't he describe it as well? Dr. Napolitano said that this was improper and could have caused the child to begin answering questions in order to please the social worker rather than to tell the truth. The prosecution, however, revealed that Dr. Napolitano was being paid between $35,000 to $42,000 to testify for the defense, and she only reviewed a few of the interviews and not the 2,000-page offense report. While the defense argued that the investigation was unjustly aimed at Trezell and Jaqueline, the prosecution began to highlight ways that their story just didn't match. The prosecution said that Jaqueline claimed she looked for the boys and ran down the street to search for them, but there was no surveillance video showing that she actually did that. Call records showed that Jaqueline was on the phone with her eldest son for 4 to 5 minutes during that time. Call records also discredited other statements from Trezell and Jaqueline. When the family visited Maria Martinez for her birthday on December the 5th, Jaqueline said that her mother was not home, so they only dropped things off and then they left. Maria, however, said that the family stayed while Trezell went to get food, and she didn't remember seeing Orrin and Orson. Cell phone records show that Trezell and Jaqueline were actually in different parts of Bakersfield that day. Maria Martinez testified that she didn't see the family much after they moved to Cal City. She visited once to speak with Jaqueline, and while she did see several children in the home, she didn't really focus on who was there. Trezell's mother Wanda said that when she went to babysit the children on September 19th, she knew she was only watching the 4 older boys, and she assumed that Orrin and Orson were with Maria Martinez, Jaqueline's mother. But Maria said that she didn't watch the boys. Investigators began to suspect that this was what led Trezell and Jaqueline to create the cover-up story. They suspected Orrin died just before the family moved to Cal City, and because they were worried that Wanda would ask questions after seeing Orson, they decided to kill him. The prosecution argued that this gave the couple 3 months to discard of the bodies, get rid of their cell phones and change their phone numbers and finish moving. Then Christmas approached. During the trial, Wanda and her husband, Philip, testified that they were planning to visit the family in Cal City. Wanda even said that she sent presents and she asked Trezell and Jaqueline for a family photo in front of the fireplace, but Wanda never actually got this family photo. The prosecution believed that this put pressure on Trezell and Jaqueline, which in the end led them to decide to report Orrin and Orson missing. The eldest child of Trezell and Jaqueline told the Kern County Grand Jury last year that he saw Orrin and Orson just days before Christmas 2020, which actually contradicted earlier interviews in which he said he didn't see the children for weeks before they were reported missing. It wasn't until half an hour into his testimony, after he was shown an earlier interview with a social worker, that he told the grand jury he heard his brother Orrin gagging one night, and the next day his parents told him that he died. He also said he didn't see Orson for a long time before he and Orrin were reported missing, and he believed that Orson had been staying at a grandmother's house. The child's hour-long testimony was read as defense counsel for Trezell and Jaqueline West tried to show that the child, who was 10 years old at the time, was influenced by improper questioning, and therefore his testimony was unreliable. Attorneys for the West said that their clients told the truth when they reported Orrin and Orson had been playing in the backyard of their California City home and disappeared during a brief period when Trezell, who had been gathering firewood, went inside. Defense counsel told the jury this is a kidnapping case and their clients are innocent of wrongdoing. According to District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer, a guilty conviction achieved with no body found is rare. The indictment prior to the trial alleged that both parents induced a minor to commit or assist in the commission of the crime while taking advantage of a position of trust or confidence to commit the offense. He also said that the defendants also threatened witnesses, unlawfully prevented or dissuaded witnesses from testifying, suborned perjury, or in any way illegally interfered with the judicial process. But where are the boys? I've read somewhere, but I actually couldn't really confirm, that their bodies were dumped in a landfill. Someone apparently witnessed Trezell or Jaqueline or both of them carrying something there, but I'm just not quite sure where I've read that and I couldn't really find it again. I know that the police searched a landfill in hopes of finding the boys, but they were not successful. But Trezell and Jaqueline had plenty of time to dispose of them, and even if they were disposed of at a landfill, chances are very slim that they would ever be recovered. After weeks of testimony, 12 jurors came to the conclusion that Trezell and Jaqueline West were guilty of 5 of the 7 counts in connection to the deaths of their adoptive sons, Orrin and Orson West. In regards to Orrin West, Trezell and Jaqueline were found guilty of murder in the 2nd degree, involuntary manslaughter, willful cruelty to a child, and false report of an emergency. In the case of Orson West, they are both found guilty of willful cruelty to a child and false report of an emergency. The jury was actually hung on conspiracy to commit a crime and murder in the 2nd degree in regards to Orson West. After being asked by the jury, the foreman of the jury said that they would not be able to come to a verdict on those counts. Trezell and Jaqueline West face life sentences if convicted of murder or conspiracy charges in the deaths of the brothers. They will be sentenced on 13th of July this year. And I know that these verdicts, they bring some sort of justice and closure for Orrin and Orson, for their family, for the community, for everyone invested in their disappearance. But I kind of still don't feel like this is 100% justice. The jury only found them guilty of killing one of the boys and not the other. I think it's always more reassuring to hear a full guilty verdict You know what I mean? And it's really sad that Orrin and Orson West are still not found so they can get a proper burial and an eternal resting place. And I feel really sorry for the other boys, because not only will they grow up without their parents, they have to live with the knowledge that at least two of them witnessed one of the boys dying, even touching his cold body. And I just find it really disgusting that Trezell and Jaqueline manipulated their boys into silence. I can't even begin to imagine what this will do to a child, but I truly hope that they get all the support they need moving forward. And with this we got to the end of the video. These are basically all of the latest updates in the case. Like I said, I did a deep dive into this case as it happened, and I will leave you the link for the playlist in the description under the video. But again, I need to remind you, if you do check out the playlist on my other channel, please don't subscribe on that channel because I am not keeping it updated. So anyway, please guys, do let me know what do you think about the verdict in the comment section down below. For now, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!